Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our first of hopefully many sessions on teaching books for the state of South Carolina. We're so happy to introduce teaching books to you today, and our session title today is Bringing Literacy Activities to Life. My name is Kim Davick, and I'm joined by my colleague Jill Costi, and I think we will have a few other of our colleagues in, and we'll introduce them as well when they get here. Today, we have a few goals, and so I'm going to go over those with you. And those are to introduce ourselves as a partner for you and to share I'm going to share a snippet of our mission, and that is just about equity of this literacy service for everyone, so that we want to know how we can help you partner together with you to change the experience that readers have with the books the second that they open up that book. And the next piece that we want to make sure that you know is that this is all about your books, your literacy goals, and your technologies. So today we're going to get you excited about teaching books, and then we're going to be talking about setup and inviting you to reach out to us, and we'll be reaching out to you too to provide support. And I'm going to go ahead and get going here. So today I'm going to share resources that deepen the experience that your readers have with the book the moment that they open it up or they begin listening to it. And we can use our search tool. So you see here, I am welcomed to the South Carolina State Library, Discus. Welcome to Teaching Books. You'll see that welcome. If you are on a device at home, you're still going to be welcomed to Teaching Books. You'll see Welcome South Carolina Resident. And part of our setup piece that we're going to be talking about today is how we make sure that we're set up appropriately for you in your district, in your building. You'll see that I'm also welcomed by name, and part of our setup options allow you to, if you're using a single sign-on, that you'll be able to set it up that way. We do not collect student data. Students sign in anonymously, so your students would still see welcome, perhaps your district, or welcome South Carolina Resident, depending on if they're at home and you don't have things set up in a portal. But that is one of the things that we can talk about, which is customizing the experience that you have with Teaching Books when you come to Teaching Books. Now here's my next part that I love. So let's use our search tool for a title that might be being read or it's of interest. And I'm going to start searching When Stars Are Scattered. And you notice I start typing, I haven't hit enter, and that title comes up. So this is on this year's South Carolina Junior Book Award list for 6-8. And each title page is going to vary slightly, but I'm just going to go over some of the components. So here you'll see that we have 54 resources for this title if you're using it in your instruction. So depending on who your audience is, you've got tools here for students, for the teachers that all teachers that are using the site, for the librarians in the library, and with families at home. So here we can read a little bit more about the title. We can see information from the Cooperative Children's Book Center at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. We have information from the publisher. We can see that there is, back to that title page, we can see that within the 54 resources, we see that it's won 20 awards. We can look at the complexity of the title. We can use the Discover Like Books tool for a reader's advisory piece. And then here's where the magic happens. So every day we interview authors and illustrators, all the book creators that we can, to bring you these original resources. So here we have the Meet the Author recording for When the Stars Are Scattered. I'm going to open that up, and I'm going to play just a little bit of it. You see that it's 3 minutes and 17 seconds. So you already have amazing literacy instruction, and the resources here go right along, and you don't have to rewrite an entire lesson plan. You can start as an introduction, use it as a think, pair, share. You can ask students to respond. They can listen to it ahead of time. All sorts of ways this can be used. Let's listen.
Hello, my name is Victoria Jamison. I'm the co-creator of When Stars Are Scattered. My co-author is Omar Mohammed, and colors for the book were done by Iman Getty. I wanted to write this book because I was working with refugees in my hometown of Portland, Oregon, and I was learning more about how refugees come to the United States, and I was getting to meet some wonderful people and hearing their stories. And I was starting to wonder if there was a way I could use my background as a graphic novelist to bring some of these stories to a young audience. But it was just a thought of mine, and I wasn't sure how to proceed. I didn't know the next steps until my family moved to Pennsylvania, and I met Omar Mohammed, the co-author, when I was visiting his place of work, which is Church World Service in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And he works to resettle refugees and immigrants to the United States and help them find jobs. And
I'm going to stop. So we hear in 3 minutes the backstory, the writing, some of the writing process. These are all as individual as the authors themselves, but you'll see we scroll on down and sometimes the author will go ahead and read a section of the book. And how valuable is that for another fluency model? They hear us reading to them very often, all the time. And so to be able to have a book talked by that author or illustrator is truly magical. One of the key components you're also going to see on all these pages is a share this page. And so I'm going to show you this, and I'm going to show you what can happen if you choose to use the select a language. So let's say that we wanted our readers to be able to read this in another language. We can select a language and I'm going to choose French. The text itself will translate. Our author will still be speaking in English, but the text will translate. So what happens then when I use my share tool, if it's helpful, I have all of these resources shareable also in that language. So if I know shelf talkers are right over here, thank goodness, because I don't know French. But if I choose that shelf talker, the shelf talker is available in French for us. And so we would have the ability to have that on our shelves if it was important for our readers. And we also can have it, of course, in English. The beauty of the sharing tools, rather than using the address bar URL, is the recipient to whatever you chose to share has immediate access. So those of you that quick whipped up your phone to see that QR code right now, you will see that you will go directly to that resource. No sign in required. Breaking down another level of accessibility for our readers and making it as easy as possible for everyone to get right to the resources. I'm going to go back to share the original. So again, sharing this page, I shared the shelf talker. You also could, if you had a class set, you could put this label sheet, print this label sheet, and then you could have the author speaking about the book and every single one of those titles right in the book, ready to go, along with, and I'm going to go back because you can share in so many different ways. So making things paperless is key. If I scroll down to these other resources, original resources about the author interviews, book guides, activities, and lessons, maybe a book reading or a trailer. Maybe I want my vocabulary list. We partner with vocabulary.com. So if I wanted to share the vocabulary list in a paperless way, I could make that those labels for my vocabulary list. So many different opportunities to be able to hook readers and connect. Another great resource that you'll find on so many of our titles are our name pronunciation. So those are also original TeachingBooks resources. And so if I choose a name pronunciation, the author will give a little bit of backstory sometimes, not always, and then just telling you how to pronounce their names. So honoring our book creators in that way is very powerful.
Hello, my name is Victoria Jamison. People always try and spell my last name with either an I or an E, but it's actually spelled with an I and an E.
So hers is short and sweet, 9 seconds. Some of them are a bit longer, but again, as varied and amazing as each of these authors and illustrators are, they show that in their name pronunciations. So we can search for an author, we can search for a title, we can search in any number of ways in our search tool. If you put your cursor in the search bar and then put your library scanner on, you can search the ISBN and the resources will pull up. And then if you have a device with a camera, we have a camera tool here that can also be used. So all sorts of ways. That one's especially wonderful on your phone. Browsing is the ability now for us to think about the depth of this service for you and allowing you to look at complete collections. And so you're able to browse all of these collections by grade band, by perhaps a curricular area or a genre. Maybe you want to start that search with cultural experience, recency of publication, or a format of a resource, or maybe you want a particular resource type. Those are some possibilities for you as you're diving into the browse function. So here, I'm going to start with, maybe I'm looking for a 1st through 5th ideas, and I select that. And now I start seeing that collection. So there are over 23,000 titles that we have resources for. And so then maybe you want it to speak to, I'm going to choose a different, to a cultural experience. So perhaps you want it to speak to the Asian American cultural experience. I select that. And because I'm speaking about a cultural experience, I want award-winning titles. And so I'm going to choose award-winning titles. And now I have a collection that meets that criteria. The sort right now is a default sort, but if I want to see it by number of resources or title or recency of publication, I can also change my view. This now still gives me 119 titles. So maybe I wanted to continue narrowing, and I wanted to be able to make sure that I was looking at resources that had maybe a vocabulary list, or they had an author interview that I really wanted to look at that, or maybe they had written a guest blog post. And so we do have a guest blog post, an original one, for not exactly the same. And so there are just all sorts of ways that you can dive in, hone in, to see particular types of resources, and then you can look to see if that might be something you want to use with your readers. You're already using it with your readers and you want to expand upon that experience. You want to encourage rereading or thinking deeply. You have book guides, activities, and lessons, all sorts of tools for that. I'm going to go back up to browse though to show you something about the depth of the collection for books. So if I choose see all books, takes just a moment, and this is one of my favorite parts of the day because our content team is amazing and they're adding resources all the time. And so seeing that number every day, and it's over 78,000 today, is a beautiful thing. So we have resources for 78,000 titles. I'm going to open up the grade levels here so you can see and make that just a little bit bigger. So you see that over 22,000 resources, or excuse me, titles in all of these different grade bands for you. So you can expect to see the titles that you're using with your readers. Okay. Jill, are there any questions that have come up that I need to address so far?
Not yet, Kim.
Okay, perfect. I want to go back to another title because I want to show you something before we dig in too deeply, and I'll just choose Under the Mesquite. So if I'm looking at this title, then I scroll on down and all of these accordions will open up for you. So you can see all of the original resources that are here, different lessons, information about the author. You can see the 12 different author interviews that we have for this title. And of course, depending on the author, there can be many, many more. But they also tell you the format. So you can pay attention to what type of resources your readers need and know that you're going to find resources here. So we have some of them are written, some are audio, some are visual. So depending on what your readers need for best learning, you can find those here. Also book guides, activities, and lessons. And so anything that is original, you'll see outlined in this reddish orange color. And then we partner with trusted partners to bring the best resources to you. So you'll see different types of lesson plans that you can come here and use. And again, if I want to share this with anyone, I can share it using my share arrow, and then the recipient would have immediate access. So maybe you're wanting your readers to look at particular discussion questions, to come to class ready to bring they've thought about a question, they're going to respond to it, and you want them to be ready to lead that portion of the discussion. You can send them some ideas to start thinking deeply about the titles that you're sharing with them. Okay. So that is using our section about searching and browsing. There are sections here for your students, and we wanted to pull this out for you because we've often had people asking us, is TeachingBooks for our readers as well? And absolutely. So your readers there are some ideas just to pull them right in. So a for fun section that has some games and book readings, all sorts of things like that. And that allows, there's a section here on diverse books that we'll talk a little bit more too. Find books you'll like is a reader's advisory tool for them using language that might make more sense for them. And then some ideas for vocabulary and lessons for homework help. The For Educators section is going to have all sorts of tools. And this is why we're going to invite you to have a demo for yourself. We'll have a setup form that will allow this to be just set up exactly how for your school, your district, and your readers, and with the technologies that you're using for single sign-on to be able to get resources, put them right in the places where you expect to see them. That's what we're hoping to do. And so we'll reach out to you then, and you can reach out to us to be able to personalize how we work with you. What are your literacy goals? Do you need ideas about book lists and collection analysis? Are you diving right into adding diverse titles and thinking about your collections in that way? Maybe adding ideas about standards into your instruction. And so how can TeachingBooks support that work, that rich literacy work that you're doing as a partner for that work? Okay. So let's take a peek then in literacy and standards connections for two of the sections. So here, ways to engage your readers with, these are standards-based examples about using TeachingBooks to support this work that you're doing cross-curricularly or within a focus area that you're highlighting. And so you'll see, if I open up social emotional learning, you'll see some ideas about how TeachingBooks can support these components. You'll also, under For Educators, see a section on teaching ideas that are prepared, ready to go, ready to use, ready to share, from timely topics for your newsletters and to monthly lesson ideas for ready to go library plans or sub-plans, ready to use ideas that are either printable or PDF fillable that you can use in your instruction, and then just different instructional support pieces. So all sorts of ideas for you. Also, under this section, you'll see ways to build lists, and then you'll be able to analyze those lists. And I'll talk a little bit about those too, because this is, I see that there's a question, Jill, that I'm gonna, because I want to talk about Battle of the Books lists and things like that next, but maybe this is the perfect time to pause.
Yes, so Jackie was wondering, will we be scanning to make sure that we have titles in the South Carolina Book Awards? And I mentioned that our content team is always looking and adding new titles to our awards list and updating those lists for us, but I wanted to make sure I have that right. And if there's anything else you'd like to add.
Jackie, if we were in a session together today, this is when I'd be coming over to give you a TeachingBooks bag or pencil or book, because this is the perfect segue. So you can search South Carolina, but just anytime you sign into TeachingBooks under this toggle menu, you're going to see your reading lists. Okay. And because you're in South Carolina, you're going to see your award lists right here under South Carolina lists. And so you'll see your children's book awards, the dates, and then we've added in some of your Battle of the Books for independent schools as well. And I know that you're using your junior book award for public school. And so I know but you should see those lists here. So let's say that I choose, I wanted that just junior book award right here first. I open that up and there are 20 titles with 430 resources. This is just the best segue for so many different reasons, because getting the resources right to your readers is key, right? So we want to make sure that we're set up in your technologies. If you're using Clever, if you're using Classic, we want to be able to get it so that you're just sign right in. And likely, in the same vein, here we have yes, you can share this entire list. And if I share this entire list, the recipient would have 430 resources for these titles, but we also can embed this list. And so if you select the embed this list or tool right over here on the left-hand side, it is going to format it for you. So you're going to see the display that and the code is all here. So you can pull this right onto your library homepage or your website, however you want it. It will be, it will show your I lost my word. It will, but it will be formatted here for you, and it will function just like the site. And so this is another way to get resources right to your readers, because they can just select stamped and hear Jason Reynolds talk about writing. So yes, you're again under the toggle menu here, your reading lists. You'll see all your South Carolina lists here, and you can click to see all. This section here to the left of the South Carolina list is the piece that we're going to want to talk to you about when we meet. Because do you have curricular lists? Are you using a particular reading program? Do your ninth graders read a select set of titles? We want to have your district list here so that when you sign in, you see things, what you expect to see. So your list will be here as well. And then any list that you create. So I had created something personally, your personal list would be here as well. Did that answer your question? And please send me your address. I'm not even kidding. It was exactly where I wanted it in the presentation too. It was the best. Okay. So yes. So South Carolina as a whole, and then your district, what you're doing in your district. And so we'll be reaching out. You might have even seen some emails already and I'll share the forms for you too, to set up. And then we want to meet with you. My team can't wait. All right. Let's also take a look then for educators, because you also have, along with the book list and collection analysis tools. So you can dive in, you can look at the analysis of lists that you're using or that you're creating. So for instance, if I wanted to take a peek at a small collection in my library, or I was working with a teacher and we were considering a collection of titles to use for a specific set of lessons, we can build that list and then we can analyze the collection and pay attention to what that looks like. So let me choose that title that I already created. I'm going to choose that list I already created to show you what that analysis could look like. So here's a list, and you can do it for any list. This was my November graphic novel display that I'm keeping for myself because I might want to choose to use that again. but here is my list. It has 17 titles and it's got 307 resources. Anywhere I see this list analysis report, I can take a look at that. And so here I'm going to be able to take a look at cultural experiences and genres, recency, both quantitative and qualitative measures. I have information at a glance. I see fiction and nonfiction. I see recency of publication, cultural experience information, and our definitions for all of these areas are front and center for you. And then we just keep seeing all this information in a great way that you can use as a presentation if you need to present something about, maybe you have a list of titles you're considering using, or you want to purchase, or you're sharing artifacts for a particular reason. You have this beautiful display. You also can download a spreadsheet or print it. The next section is something that is extremely powerful. So here we have also what isn't included. And so when we're taking a look at what we might want to choose to use next, or if we want to adapt this list at all, if it's an assignment, or if it is something we're considering purchasing, we can take a look to see which cultural experiences or perhaps what genres are not included, and then move beyond that. So let's say that I say, okay, it's just not okay that I don't have anything from the American Indian cultural experience in this particular list. So what I can do then is I can select that, dive in using my filtering, and maybe make some choices about adding in ideas. So really powerful tools to help you hone in on what you're using and what you're considering using. Okay. Ideas about diverse books and programming also are here. And like I said, everything could become its own session. So don't hesitate, because training and support comes with your license, and we would love to provide that for you. And it's included. So don't hesitate to reach out. Also under help, some quick start and training ideas, some tutorials, all sorts of tools for you. I do want to go into the slides real quick to show you a couple of things and invite that. And then I want to invite some questions. Okay. So in the slides, again, the goals of reaching every reader, honoring and respecting your activities, and integrating into what you have. We support all sorts of integrations. And so we would love to know what you're using and make that meaningful for you. There's a Chrome extension that you can then make every Google search if you're using Google. If you have Chrome books, then you can see literacy resources every single time somebody does a search, which is gorgeous. And then I do want to talk about, oops, I lost it here. I do want to talk about the assign in. So let me get there. Okay, so here are your pro tips. You came here, there's really 4 tips. You came here, that's number 1. So yay you. The second one is we have a setup form. And so this will be going out to your tech departments. And if you want to speed the process along and send it, Jill, would you mind popping this right into the chat? This would be great. So this setup form then allows customization, and I'm going to open that up for you. You can also learn more about the Chrome extension, and then training and support from us is always included, and we'd love to do that. So let me go to the setup form so you can see it. So this is for your tech department. They'll say you're a district, they'll get your information here. Just my favorite friend that I expected to see during setup information. And all different contact information so that we can connect TeachingBooks to the technologies that you're using. And when someone said, oh, it even becomes more personal than South Carolina. Yes, that's great, but we want to make it even more personal for you. And just like that, we have Nick Glass, who's joined us, our founder and head of TeachingBooks. Nick, I love it. We've given a demo. we've talked about our setup form. We've talked about how we will be reaching out and they can reach out to us for training, and that's all included. And we're so eager to support their literacy work. Would you like me to go to any place in particular? I think probably the best thing would be to go to so they can see. I can stop sharing so they can see you, so you can give a little
No,
backstory.
that
You want to
is-
speak?
I didn't put on I'm just in a sweater, sorry. Didn't do my hair for today. One of those days. But I guess I just want to jump in and say that thank you to everybody here for learning early on in the process about a resource that is designed at its heart to break down opportunities for every single reader to have the author there when they're reading a book. That's the charge, and to give insights to every reading activity. So I hope that you can begin to imagine through the work that Jill and Kim are sharing, and all of us at TeachingBooks on the website, that there's so many ways to support the reader as well as you professionals in your environments. And so TeachingBooks is poised for that. We want to learn with you. We're just honored to be a part of that. And as Kim said with the setup form, everything is about tying into the work you're doing, the books you're using within the technologies you're using. So basically consider what I'm saying is just kind of like a pedagogical summary. You've already been told it. We told you, showed you, and now I'm just telling you again the same thing, which is just what books you're using, what technologies you're using. We want to make it so it fits like that. And so the tools are there. We're always here to support you. We're really honored for the opportunity to be a part of this, and nothing's better than communication. So please let us know, but we will keep working as hard as we can to honor every reader's needs of giving them materials for the books that matter to them that can really make a difference. And then our quest to you is help share that, right? You know what's being done in your communities. You know what's being read on your Battle of the Books list and on your SCASL lists and in your social studies classroom. And we built the tools to make it so easy for you to share them. And once you start doing that, I'd love to imagine that you're building new collaboration opportunities. You're being treated as the rock star that you are once again, and that everybody gets to just understand the power of these amazing texts and how they can help grow readers and thinkers and everybody else and everything else in our world. So that's what I have, Kim. I can answer any questions, but I just want to come in and say thank you for the opportunity. I'm sorry I'm late. It's one of those days where I've been in a meeting since I don't know when, 8:15. And but I really appreciate the opportunity to work with you all.
No, this is spectacular. Jill's been minding the chat. And if there are other questions that we want to address now or show, I want to make sure that we have time for that. The other pieces, there's a little bit more about your battle list that I think we can talk about, but I really want to make sure that your questions are answered and that you again hear that invitation to the shared work that we're excited to begin with you. I see a little note in about signing in. And so I want to go back for just a minute, Nick, and you can hop in too. So right now, every single one of you, if you're at home, should be welcomed as a South Carolina resident, because we wanted to make sure that everyone had access. And, things have been, students have been home, they've been in all sorts of places. They've been in school, they've been out of school, out of their buildings. And so we wanted to make sure that access to TeachingBooks was always available. And many of you, if you're in your buildings now, because we've done some great work with leaders in the state already, we may even have, if you sign in, you may even be welcomed by your district already because of some of the things that have been done with IPs and things like that. But we want to make sure that we have everything set up. So even if you see your district here, that does not mean that you're fully set up. We want to make sure that any technologies that you're using, we can connect to those, because we want to make it seamless. We don't want barriers. And I know that someone said something about Google sign in. And so if your district is using Google sign in, that's when Google sign in will work for you. But I'm going to sign out one level here. If you're not using a single sign-on, if a single sign-on is available to you, it will do all of the work for you. You won't have to remember anything. But if you are welcomed like your readers anonymously, because we don't collect student data, this shows you what I said earlier about seeing the welcome that would match the center screen for students. Then when you sign in, if you don't have single sign in, you sign in as an educator, you'll see those abilities with Clever and ClassLink if you have it. Nick?
You keep going.
Oh,
I just want to,
and
when you're
then-
done with that, I have a question.
and
Or
then you can sign in with your work email. If your work email is a Google, that will put you right in the correct place.
So a few things, going back to the importance of that sign up form. Everything Kim said is great. I just want to elaborate that without that sign up form, we might not get your Google access working as well as possible. Because within that sign up form, we ask you things like, do your students have a different email domain? So like we have students.busd or students.berkeley.net instead of just berkeley.net. And if we need to know those email domain details, we need the information in the setup form from your district so you can be, and someone wrote, we use ClassLink. Great. But we got to help you get set up in there. And so it doesn't just magically happen. There are a number of things that have to happen on our end and on the district's end. It's very simple. I can do it. We can each do it within a minute, but we have to know to have that conversation. So the setup form is the most important thing to get this set up into the future. Sending us your book list, setting up the titles you're using, that's going to help us align your resources to what we're doing. And just you playing and diving in and saying, oh my goodness, I didn't know I could learn about every book that ever won the Newbery, or whatever it is. Great. So the setup form though is the foundation to making this successful for anybody, because that's what you're teaching folks to use. And we want to ensure that we have that as well as possible. So I just want to reiterate that over and over again.
Nick, can we clarify for those who might not know, that setup form, it's already gone out to every school, and will like the tech directors be the one to fill that out, or can anybody here fill out that setup form?
Look at it. I mean, there's some questions if you want to go to it. Whoever's driving, I assume Kim is. It asks things like your name. You guys know that, right? But do you know their IP addresses? Maybe you want to get that from your tech director. There are not that many complicated details. If you know that you're using, all we want to know here is, should we reach out to you with ClassLink information, or should we reach out to you with Clever or Blackboard or Schoology or Canvas? We just want to know what you say is used in your district. And then we send a separate correspondence on each of those details. So you see exactly how to set up within those. Oh, you're using Mac and VIA? Fabulous. Did you know the TeachingBooks is integrated into that? Oh, you're using Tidal Wave. Oh, great. Let's get that set for you too. So we want to know what you're doing so that we can customize that, because we are in a dozen some odd technologies, if not more than a dozen now. We're launching next week Safari Montage. What's that going to be like the next few weeks? And so what's that going to be like? We if you're using it, you'd love having the content as a repository, TeachingBooks as a repository within Safari Montage. It's fabulous. But again, how would you know unless we set it up? So it's just a communication. So it's not too much pressure per se, Jill, but it's just how we're going to work together and customize it, as Kim said when I came in, about making this feel about you, because it is. Relationships with books, relationships with things are very personal, and we're trying to replicate that in the online environment. As goofy as that sounds, that's what we're trying to do.
I believe that what has happened so far, though, is that your leaders in South Carolina have set up information for you all and invited you to this session. There will be more emails that will go out, but you can be ahead of the game and fill that form out already, or send it along to whoever needs to fill it out. What will happen then, and we're also going to be sending, you'll probably get an email from us inviting you to a session or to create a session. So we would love to do that as well. So this was a big overview, but those conversations that we have with you on a more personal level about your district, your goals, your books are key.
Yep. And going back to Jill's question of who was it sent to, we sent to whom we knew of, but really nothing's better than you, if you know the person, saying, did you get this form? If not, could you do it? Because we don't really know. We're looking at data. You guys know the humans. So nothing's better than a note from a colleague saying, hey, you know, this is a new thing. Can you help us get this set up, please? It's part of Discus. Here's the proof from the state library and the DOE. You know, that's going to be the best.
Great. Any other questions for the group as a whole before I stop the recording?
Kim, would you show us what it would look like if a student logged on?
Yes, it does depend on how you have it set up. So if I'm going to sign out one level, so hopefully we'll have TeachingBooks in wherever you have your databases. Wherever you have things set up, TeachingBooks will be there, and that's part of the setup piece. And so I'm going to sign out one level, because then when your students sign in, however they sign in through a ClassLink or Clever or however you have them sign in, they will see this anonymous to your district access. And that is a great question for a couple of reasons. So they can still see the resources. They're going to listen to those authors. They can see the trailers. They can listen to those complete book readings that are here. All of the resources they can dive in and explore and get all excited about reading and what you're assigning to them, and their independent reading. That key about what your sign in though allows you to save those lists beyond one time. So that allows you to keep a list. Remember how when I opened up my lists were there beyond the South Carolina ones and beyond the district ones. It allows you to share using all of the sharing tools, allows you to create customized lessons and participate in those text complexity pieces. So everything that you see here, your students would be able to see and use, which is so powerful and exciting. You then have additional level of access to tools that support your work.
Yeah, I think that's really right. That it's anonymous so that they can access everything without knowing, without saving, because to save anything you have to know who the user is. And so we don't want to, we never track any student information, so we don't save anything under any student accounts. But the content, everything here, it looks the same. They can go to the educator section. If they start to build a list, they're asked, are you a student or an adult? And then they pick student and they're allowed one-time use. If they're an adult, you save it forever. You can send a QR code flyer to somebody, but you can't send an email, because to send an email, we have to know your email address. You have to give that information, and we don't want that information, because our best approach to security for student privacy is to literally not have it at all. And that's what we're trying to honor all the time. It's a great question, but really it's the same. And the way you can experience it is exactly what Kim did. So Kim was signed in as Kim. Remember, at the upper left corner, it said, welcome Kim. And all she did was hit sign out. And it didn't take us off TeachingBooks completely. We went down to the anonymous level. And then if she hits log out, it takes her off the site completely. So that area under the hamburger menu on the top left right now, you could either sign up to the educator login or sign out and be off completely. Those are the two options that you can experience the student sign in also. So that's a really wonderful question. I don't think about it that often.
I know, it's like the best questions happen here.
We have another question. If we have just a moment, I know we're at our time, but you can decide how to address this. We've got someone asking if you could address briefly a lesson plan, where they would find that, or how teachers could involve their students in using these resources for their assignments.
I'd love to do that. So I'm going to, I'll show you. So let's say you're using a title, and if someone wants to throw one in, we can do that. Otherwise, I will just choose. I start typing. I have all sorts of choices for books, authors, etc. I'm choosing Brown Girl Dreaming. And under those accordions, so remember the pages will, the layout is the same, but the number of resources. So this title has 79 resources. I scroll down and I'm looking for those book guides, activities, and lessons. So I can open it up. I can see some of the multi-level lessons that are customizable here. I can also see some of those that are from our partners. So let's say that you were going to send your readers to the questions on, I'm going to choose this resource. You're going to use a sharing tool to give it to them, maybe in Canvas or however you do that, however you have that set up. But then they could, maybe this one's a little more in depth than you probably would give your students, but you would have some questions then that they maybe could come to the discussion prepared for. If you were
36 pages long. Oh my
I know,
goodness gracious.
that was, I never would,
That's a
just-
serious
let's
lesson.
say I chose instead to send them this one. That's the one that you submit to your administrators. So I pull up this educator guide.
This one's only 42 pages. I don't know what it is. 28 pages long. Oh my
I
goodness.
think we're gonna
Oh,
pop.
you're only on page 14 of it. So this Brown Girl Dreaming starts. This is the Jackie Woodson guide. So Brown Girl Dreaming is on page 14.
It's
Yep.
taking a minute to pull up here. So it then is going to give you questions, not the answers, but it's going to give questions to prompt thinking. I always love that about having the opportunity. What if students look at those ideas? I'm always thinking, oh my gosh, I wish my students would have popped into a lesson and would have thought about theme and characterization and any number of things that they could have. I'll just choose this one. Maybe this one will pull up a little faster for me. What then would my students be able to bring to a conversation if they had just thought about the way that different things were brought about? So, you know, you could send them to the page and ask them to look at the interviews or ask them to look at the lessons or ask them to look at any number of things. I'm not quite sure what's happening right now, but anyway, but there's where you find them. Where you would share them would be with the share arrow. If I want to share a particular resource, if I want to share all of the resources, I would use the share this page. So maybe I want them to look at all of the lessons. And in the multi-leveled lessons, you get to differentiate for your readers. That Linda's going to invite me back, I think, so that we can talk about multi-leveled lessons. I am going to stop our recording. And I want to thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to go back to the screen at the top. Oh, there we go. I'm going to go back to our first page and thank you all so very much. And Jill, thank you for fielding questions. Nick, thank you for coming in to introduce. That was just spectacular and everything that I hoped. So thank you all very much. And we look forward to this continued partnership.